Chapter is titled On Controlling the Voice. When we are speaking, one way is for us who are able to use our vocal cords and our vocal apparatus in this lifetime to communicate through the spoken word. How do we go about our day using the words? How do we choose our tone of voice, what to say, what not to say? That sometimes is as important as what we say. So let's learn with Andrea Luiz the importance of the control of our voice in communicating with others. He will say, observe how your voice is, for it's one of the most important instruments of the life for each one of us. There are many ways of communicating. The spoken word is one of them. The body language is another one. There's folks who are deaf and mute. They use a different means of communication with sign language. So voice is one of them. The first thing he says is observe how your voice is. How is your voice today? Is it controlled, attuned with your emotions and the emotions of others? He's saying the voice is an instrument, is a way for you and I to communicate. Is our voice tired? Is our voice angry? Is our speech angry? He will continue. The voices of people carry an expression of their own feelings. So when we talk to someone, we are expressing how we feel. The emotions we're physically feeling in our body and the names we give to those emotions. So how is your voice today? Hopefully the voice is calm, tranquil, peaceful, and loving, right? Now he's going to give us practical advice on what to do. He says, do not speak so loudly so that you frighten people, or so quietly that you create difficulties for those who are listening to you. So not too loud so people don't get scared, not too low that they are unable to hear you. So just right. It's always advisable to repeat patiently what has been said when it's necessary, without altering the voice. Understanding that not everybody has impeccable hearing. Sometimes we speak with people, we assume they heard us, or they're listening, but they heard us. But not everybody has impeccable hearing. So maybe their response to you was because they couldn't hear what you're saying, or it wasn't as clear, or they understood something else. Now, if you encounter someone who does have problems hearing, what do? He says, to those who have a hearing problem, which we will have once we get older, some of us will, some of us are born without the ability to hear. Andrea Luiz will say, never say phrases as, are you deaf? Do you want me to shout? How many times do I have to repeat it? Or I'm tired of repeating it. So again, it goes back to the beginning where he says sometimes it's advisable. It's not sometimes, I'm sorry. It's always advisable to repeat patiently what has been said. But if the person clearly has a hearing problem, then we don't shout at them. We don't ask them if they're deaf. We just meet them where they are. And sometimes I work in a hospital and I do witness that some of our older patients are unable to hear us as well. And I do see the change in people when they were louder. We repeat the same thing louder, and we treat them as if they can't hear at all. Sometimes they lose certain tones, certain frequencies and vibrations of the voice, but they can hear you. They just might need this slight adjustment. So we have an observance of our voice. We watch how we say things and how our voice is, because it's carrying our feelings. We don't speak so loudly, but also not as soft. And we repeat patiently when it's needed to. Now he's going to continue talking about anger. How many times do we feel angry and we are not attuned with our own feelings, and then we go about hurting others. He says, uncontrolled tone of voice by anger is in fact an aggression, and aggression never persuades anyone. So when we are aggressive, when we're shouting, when we're trying to impose, we don't persuade folks. Nowadays, we have lost the ability of talking to one another, of discussing issues, and still agreeing that the issue we can disagree on the issues without aggression. God has granted us diversity. Look around nature. Nature is not all the same. The seasons aren't the same. The plants and the animals aren't the same. Even the worlds all around the universe, all the galaxies are different. All the planets are different. So we need to relearn to be less aggressive and more empathetic and compassionate towards one another. Because anger and aggression never persuades anyone. He will say, talk with serenity and respect by putting yourself in the shoes of the listener. For by doing so, you will say your phrases in a useful manner. Your phrases will be more useful to everybody. Let's think about if I were ill, if I had trouble hearing, if I were tired, if we were in a loud environment, would I want people shouting at me? If I had a hearing impairment, or if I wasn't able to speak, but I could hear, do I want people treat me differently because this is my limitation? The answer is most likely no. Therefore, we don't do that to others. If we spend our mornings and our days thinking about, would I want someone to do this to me? We would save a lot of time, a lot of disagreements and disputes, because we wouldn't be talking to people and doing things to people that are of that manner. Isn't that beautiful? Last but not least, he says, remember that with any phone call, and I will add, because this book was published in 1970 in Portuguese, only a few years ago in English by the Spiritist group of Brighton. So this first print is from 2004 in English, but it was published, the preface by Emmanuel was dated in 1971. So I'm going to add, remember that with any phone call, text message, voice message, video message, and social media post, there is someone on the other end of that line who needs your calmness in order to maintain his or her tranquility. So when we use our voice, then, as Andrea Luiz explained to us, express our feelings. We are not loud, not too low that people can hear us. And if they do have hearing issues hearing what we are saying, we repeat. We assert that they're understanding what we mean, and then we move on. Because aggression doesn't persuade anyone. And when we are communicating, we think about the person at the end of that line, quote unquote. Who is receiving the post? Who is seeing it? Who is going to share? How is that going to be transmitted to another person in a story? And then we continue to do unto others what we want them to do unto us. Right, friends? On Controlling the Voice is chapter 3 of the book Green Light by the Spirit, Andrea Luiz, through the mediumship of Francisco Candido Xavier. Our gratitude to both Andrea Luiz and Chico Xavier, who have brought us these teachings. I hope they help you throughout the day. And if you have any questions and comments, write to us. We have our playlist on Karnak Radio, and the team of the Spirit Society of Richmond has translated and revised these messages that we bring here. We always revise even the books that are already translated to bring to you the best teachings we can. And we will work together to bring these teachings to your homes at your own time and space. Stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Have a great